Hi everyone, this is Free Thinking Through the Fourth Turning. My name is Sasha Stone. How the Lawfare made me a Trump supporter. The grifters are red-pilling Americans by the day. 6 years ago, I stood a few feet away from Joe Biden at a fundraiser and was certain he was the only person who could save this country from Donald Trump in 2020. By the end of the election, however, I would leave the Democratic Party for good, saw them as corrupt, too powerful, and dangerous to the very democracy they now claim they want to protect. Now I wake up every morning in a panic that our last best hope of ending the monopoly of power on the left rests on the imperfect shoulders of Donald Trump. So I guess that makes me a Trump supporter. It was a long, slow slide that started with simply humanizing Trump and the MAGA movement. And believe me, that alone upset my friends and family. They're evil, they believe, because that's what the media tells them every second of every day. If you want to know how batshit crazy they are, those good people of the left, educated and seemingly intelligent, look no further than Heather Cox Richardson as she attempts to explain the MAGA movement.
We can absolutely say, without any doubt, that he and his supporters believe that some people are better than others and that those people have the right to rule. And they think so for different reasons. For some of his supporters, they think that their religion makes them better than other people. For some of his supporters, they think their money makes them better than other people. For some people, they think simply believing in Trump makes them better people. But they do not believe in human equality. They don't believe in the principles of the United States of America.
Meanwhile, Trump humiliates all of them by showing the people who he really is as he casually strolled into a Chick-fil-A in Georgia.
Hello, everybody. Get ready for a milkshake. You got plenty of them.
All right.
You got plenty of good looking guys. Huh?
This is an original from 2016.
Oh, I love this guy. I like that guy. Do you have a pen for me? Give me a good pen. That is the original, huh?
From 2016, Cleveland.
You've been there from the beginning.
Absolutely. From the
See?
convention.
You knew what was happening.
Absolutely.
You got it. That's cool, man. What's your name?
Lawrence Rickman.
Okay, Lawrence, let me get this pen out of here. Come here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Yes, sir.
He understood long before the rest, right?
From Shelley Winter.
Hi, Shelley.
I talked to you
Oh,
yesterday.
good. You are fantastic.
Thank you, brother.
You know Shelley?
Yes.
A great host. And are you guys
Radio
friends
show.
or
No,
something?
the Asante.
Well, that's nice because he's been there a long time too. I
Yes.
think right from the beginning.
Right from the beginning.
We did a radio interview with Shelley
Yes,
yesterday, and I appreciated it.
I appreciate you very much.
I hung up. I said, "What a nice guy that is."
And I'll bring in my clubs tomorrow along. I'll
You
stop
let
on
me
the
know.
door.
I'm telling you. You let me know,
Thank
Shelley.
you, brother. Thank you. God
Please
bless
love
you.
Watch his show. His show is great. Listen to his show. His
Absolutely.
show.
95.5.
He got it.
Yeah.
You two guys got it. Huh?
And all these kids.
The media tried to spin it as a staged photo op, but they don't know the effect Trump has to connect with people. Here is a TikTok video of a Trump supporter.
I just have to say this. With Trump coming here to Georgia, going through the inner city, going to Chick-fil-A, and doing what he did, that is the most brilliant thing ever. Because people need to see that Trump is for us. Not Biden, not Obama, but Trump is for us. He's for the people. He's for everyone. And he's America first. And to see black people going up to him and taking pictures and him embracing and showing, the people that he's not racist. Like, he cares about everybody. No matter what skin tone you have, he is for us and he's advocating for us. And it's a beautiful thing. I was screaming on the inside.
Here he was visiting East Palestine, Ohio, when the Biden administration refused to go.
To the people of East Palestine and to the nearby communities in Ohio and Pennsylvania, we have told you loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. Honor to meet you, sir. Mr. Trump, what do you make about Biden not showing up? You showing up before he did? much for coming. Nice Thank you so much. Oh, Trump, take a picture of my phone. Picture? There he is. Oh. He's the real president.
I spent a lot of time saying, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I said it so much I began to feel like a coward for saying it. Trump is no better nor worse than any politician in America. But what we've never lived through is an entire oligopoly scaring people against a former president and half the country. Because it was never just about Trump. It was always about the people who voted for Trump and chose him to represent them in government. Didn't they matter at all? No, because they were demonized as racists and thrown away like human garbage. So now I'm going to stand in full support of Trump, because I know that this is not a time to hedge or to back down. It is a time to stand up to people that have assumed power that does not belong to them. Their election meddling has become the real threat to our democracy. From the raid on Mar-a-Lago to the indictments and now to the show trials, they've left me with no other option than to stand behind the one guy they haven't been able to destroy. This can't be America, I keep telling myself. They can't distort the justice system. They can't hold trials we know aren't fair, with biased juries and partisan judges, not to mention a fully compliant propaganda press. It would be one thing if this was based on real crimes, like he had buried bodies in the basement of Trump Tower, or that he ran a sex trafficking ring or a Ponzi scheme like Bernie Madoff. But we're talking documents and disrupting a public proceeding. Give me a break. We're long overdue for the have you no decency moment, but that moment never arrived.
Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
Instead, we're on to season 8 of The Donald Trump Show, produced, directed, and starring a cavalcade of liars and fantasists. A ruling class that doesn't want to lose their grip on American society will go to great lengths to preserve it. But they don't realize that this is a very badly written reality show, and they've lost the plot by now. Right around season 5, the villain, Trump, became the hero. While the aristocracy is waiting out the ending they've bought and paid for, most of us out here in the dark are rooting for our unlikely hero to once again evade their grasp in an endless game of catch Trump if you can. The Grifters. Like all television shows that overstay their welcome, the writers of The Trump Show look less like they care about democracy and justice, and more about the filthy lucre that lines their pockets as they sell hate, fear, and hysteria to the masses. Cassidy Hutchinson would be nothing and nowhere if she hadn't cleaned up all respectable-like and thrown herself at the mercy of Liz Cheney and MSNBC. Every great reality TV show needs a hot girl, and she was it. Book deals, movie deals, our girls going places. All she had to do was tell them what they wanted to hear. It didn't matter if it was true. For podcast listeners, a press release. Kaiba Films seeks movie rights to Cassidy Hutchinson's story following the successful release of top-rated Watergate film. Liz Cheney was disgraced out of Congress in a landslide loss and now holds court on Twitter, X, bleeding about threats to democracy. Like Cassidy, her book soared to the top of the bestsellers list. Just tell them what they want to hear. She'll have a career for life on cable news. Letitia James rode the rage wave of mass hysteria and got elected on her promise to get Trump. Where would she be without him? It's not like New York has a crime problem or anything. D.A. Fani Willis will surely have a lucrative career ahead with speaking engagements, book and movie deals. Who knows, maybe there's a torrid love story for Lifetime on offer. Romance amid the fight to bring down a fascist and save democracy. They have their whore with a heart of gold in Stormy Daniels, paired with social justice warrior Alvin Bragg, all set to begin their season of The Trump Show when jury selection begins on Monday. For podcast listeners, a story by David Korn, Why a Porn Star Payoff is Exactly the Right First Criminal Trial for Donald Trump. Every Salem village needs a Cotton Mather, and they have theirs in Jack Smith, a wild-eyed zealot who will do anything, say anything, destroy his entire career and the justice system to end Trump. By now, all they've done is make people like me root for Trump even harder. We all want to see these corrupt cases go down. We all want to see our newly etched hero redeemed. We need to believe we still live in a free country that is not infected with delusion and corruption. If that makes me a Trump supporter, then so be it. Here's a video from Megyn Kelly's show.
I agree with Viva.
Well, listen, but what I'm saying, guys, is what I'm saying is this is what the polls show us. And I, too, am inclined to say, I'm not sure I believe that. I'm not sure I believe it on any of the cases. But I could see us getting closer when we're talking about the federal prosecutions, not that BS down in Atlanta. But what if
people have to see this as fair,
what if
Megyn?
we're
They're not
wrong?
gonna
But
see it
Phil,
as
what
fair.
if we're wrong? Phil, what if we're wrong? What if we're wrong? Like we've written off polls before only to be embarrassed. So what if these people mean what they say and we get to election day, these independents, 50%, say, you know what, I couldn't do it. He's a convicted felon. Then this case will have meant everything.
Yeah, well, if we're wrong, then Alvin Bragg has and this judge who puts the muzzle on Donald Trump has single-handedly changed the course of world history, would give us presumably another 4 more years of open borders and relentless crime on the streets and all the social chaos and the division that we're seeing now.
Yes.
And this is why lawfare is morally wrong. I mean, you're shooting fish in a barrel to prosecute Donald Trump in Manhattan. I mean, you cannot provide a worse venue for that man to try to get a fair trial. All the things that Viva points out about the credibility of the witnesses and the cast, those would all be reasonable doubt in a reasonable world, in a reasonable venue. But we don't have a reasonable venue. We are in Manhattan. We're going to have a bunch of lunatics on this jury that hate Donald Trump. And that, look, they elected Bragg. They elected Letitia James. These are the people that vote for people who promise to get Trump. We're gonna get Trump if you vote for us. So now they voted for these people. These people are in office. These people are now fulfilling the campaign promises to go out and get Trump. And they're
you can see the campaign ad.
The actual voters.
Promises made, promises delivered. We promise to get them. We're getting them.
Now Hollywood will start to write Trump's legacy in terrible movies that get the story wrong. In 1 month at the Cannes Film Festival, The Apprentice. For podcast listeners, a tweet by Julie Cohen, totally feeling Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn in The Apprentice. The Trump show has it all, even violence. They have somehow managed to sell the American public on the idea that MAGA is the violent side, even though everyone knows they don't board up the windows if they think Biden is going to win.
Now, when practiced correctly, law and order is vital in upholding American and all other democracies, as we saw on January 6th, when a violent mob incited by then-President Donald Trump sought to prevent a peaceful transition of power. So, looking ahead to the 2024 election, some fear another upheaval should Trump lose again. Our next guest is one of those sounding the alarm. Homeland Security expert Juliet Kayyem argues the government isn't ready for the violence Trump might unleash. And she's joining Hari Srinivasan now to discuss what President Biden should do to plan for the worst.
Christian, thanks. Julia Kayyem, thanks so much for joining us. You wrote an article recently. The title was "The Government Isn't Ready for the Violence Trump Might Unleash." What is most concerning you right now heading into this election?
So what's concerning me is both the nature and the consistency of threats of violence that are coming out of the Trump campaign, and in particular with Donald Trump. I sort of take as a given that he's telling us what his intentions are, as he did before January 6th. There's an elevated threat environment, which the FBI has already warned us about. He threatens or utilizes the potential for violence, whether it's on his social media sites or in his speeches. The language is the language of incitement. And so the scenario that I worry about isn't just sort of our election, but if Trump were to lose, we need to be ready that he needs to create a narrative about.
Something Trump said. There's a line in The Godfather 2 where Fredo says to Michael, "You can't come to Las Vegas and talk to a guy like Mo Green like that." But that's all Trump has done his entire life, be the guy who talks to Mo Green like that. Here's a scene from The Godfather.
My credit good enough to buy you out?
Buy me out.
The casino, the hotel. Corleone family wants to buy you out.
The Corleone family wants to buy me out. No, I buy you out. You don't buy me out.
Your casino loses money. Maybe we can do better.
You think I'm skimming off the top, Mike?
You're unlucky.
You goddamn guineas really make me laugh. I do you a favor and take Freddie in when you're having a bad time, and then you try to push me out.
Wait a minute. You took Freddie in because the Corleone family bankrolled your casino because the Molinari family on the coast guaranteed his safety. Now, we're talking business. Let's talk business.
Yeah, let's talk business, Mike. First of all, you're all done. The Coyote family don't even have that kind of muscle anymore. The Godfather is sick, right? You're getting chased out of New York by Barzini and the other families. What do you think is going on here? You think you can come to my hotel and take over? I talked to Barzini. I can make a deal with him and still keep my hotel.
Is that why you slapped my brother around in public?
Oh, no, that was nothing, Mike. Now, Mo didn't mean nothing by that. Sure, he flies off the handle once in a while, but Mo and me were good friends, right, Mo, huh?
I got a business to run. I got to kick asses sometimes to make it run right. We had a little argument, Freddie and I, so I had to straighten him out.
You straightened my brother out?
He was banging cocktail waitresses 2 at a time. Players couldn't get a drink at the table. What's wrong with you?
I leave for New York tomorrow. Think about a price.
Do you know who I am? I'm Mo Green. I made my bones when you were going out with cheerleaders.
Wait a minute, Mo. Mo, I got an idea. Tom, you're the consigliere. Now, you can talk to the Don, you can explain...
Just a minute now. Don is semi-retired, and Mike is in charge of the family business now. If you have anything to say it to Michael.
Mike, you don't come to Las Vegas and talk to a man like Mo Green like that!
Fredo, you're my older brother, and I love you. But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
Here was Trump on Phil Donahue back in the 1980s, shocking the audience with the naked truth.
I don't like being ripped off, and when I see something, I let people know. Unfortunately, nobody else does very much about it.
Are you open to the political discussion that is provoked by this question? Why are we protecting and risking the brave young men in the Navy when we're only getting 8% of our oil from that region? Why are we there in the first place, and why don't you pop off about that?
I say it.
We shouldn't have committed this armada in the first place to this.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not a question of committing. Before we committed, we should have had Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and a lot of other countries, and Japan paying us a hell of a lot of money. For us to lose, and there's no money that can justify this, but for us to lose our men and to be spending billions and billions of dollars, and we're not a wealthy nation, we're a country that's losing $200 billion a year. And we can't give farm aid, and we can't give welfare, and we can't give this and that, and right down the line, research on AIDS and all of the problems. And yet Japan is making hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Now, again, I respect them. They have totally taken advantage of this country. You can respect them, you can dislike them, you can do whatever you want. But they are ripping off the United States of America. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they're ripping off this country. And I don't like seeing it, and it shouldn't happen.
Trump didn't change, the country did, as people like me built our utopia, largely rooted in the virtual world. Language was the first thing we had to control. We carefully curated our words so as not to offend, words that sounded harmless, like caretaker or homeless, were transformed into caregiver and unhoused. We worried when words tumbled out of our mouths. Is this the right word? Is this offensive? Does it expose me as a bad person? It just got worse and worse. Trump resonated with so many people because he challenged those suffocating rules of language. Yes, much of what he says is offensive to the left. But as we've seen, what isn't offensive to the left by now? All they've ever had on Trump was something he said, not anything he did. They are a society now that believes words are violence. Look at the fuss they made over the word bloodbath, which proved the mass delusion is alive and well. Here I thought they might have evolved past 2020, when the media felt emboldened to overtly lie to the people. But no, if Trump is on the other side, they will do whatever they can to bring him down, even if it costs them yet more of their disappearing credibility. But Trump is the one person who can teach younger generations what my generation already knew, that sticks and stones might break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Great champions aren't born, they are made. Neil Howe was asked back in 2016 if he thought Trump was the great champion of his book, The Fourth Turning. Here's a video of Neil Howe.
Related to your book, The Fourth Turning, is this perhaps the end of The Fourth Turning with POTUS as the great champion?
Ooh. Yeah, I get asked that, and I guess one.
What is the great champion again?
The great champion is sort of the ultimate or climactic leader of the Fourth Turning, who around whom civic trust begins to grow again, right? So these are the pivotal figures in at times of fundamental outer world institutional political crisis, when we're kind of tearing down and rebuilding institutions. Keep in mind that in our Fourth Turning scenario, we're just barely, we're not even quite halfway through. We're kind of in the middle of this long era. So I think there's going to be quite a bit more to come. And Trump obviously takes us more toward the climax. I mean, everything about the guy is sort of increasing confrontation with the expectation that if it goes well, I'm good, and if I totally break it, I'm good. As we were just discussing. Yeah. And I think that kind of the outsider coming in who's willing to take on all outcomes is the kind of leader we're talking about. And I would hasten to add that the great champion figure, when we think of the Abraham Lincolns and the FDRs and so on, and these pivotal,
Would Churchill have been a great champion?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And they're all prophet archetypes, meaning they're all born just after the late crisis. They all belong to a generation of sort of that prophet archetype. And Trump is obviously a baby boomer if there ever was one. Just everything about the guy. The huge ego and all that. And so everything. And these are what great champions typically have. They have enormous ego, enormous self-confidence. But the one thing I say is that these leaders are made, not born. It is circumstances which push them into making the right decision. It's not because they're brilliant from the beginning. People don't forget that FDR was widely considered a lightweight.
He points out that Trump is a baby boomer, which is usually what we'd expect from a great champion, though it's not absolute. Here is how Neil Howe describes the great champion in The Fourth Turning Is Here, his follow-up to the first book. Quote, "What are the typical attributes of the great champion? Boundless self-confidence, uncompromising principle, contempt for the status quo, inability to back down or give up, yet also a simplicity of manner and a serenity of soul, and the charismatic ability to reconnect the rising generation with its cultural heritage. Oriented toward final ends, the great champion can be careless about the human or material costs of attaining them." End quote. Who else but a great champion would challenge the results of a corrupt election? Who would have ever had the nerve to do such a thing? Who would ever come back and run again for office after 2 impeachments and 4 indictments? Well, a great champion would. One thing we know for sure is that it isn't Joe Biden. From the Generation Report 2 years ago.
So is Joe Biden the great champion of this crisis? The staff of Business Insider thinks so. In the past year, the site has published 4 separate stories mentioning the Fourth Turning. The most recent one, published April 25th, discusses the book in much the same way as the prior three, mostly grasping the big picture, wildly mischaracterizing the details, unwilling to grant Strauss-Howe's ideas full legitimacy. The usual combination of inconsistency and skepticism, however, disappears when the authors clearly infer that President Biden is the gray champion of this crisis. The evidence says otherwise. The boomer generation is today's prophet archetype. President Biden was born in 1942, which locates him as a member of the silent generation, an artist rather than a prophet. When they hold the reins of leadership, artists are renowned for their displays of empathy, for their inclination toward complexity, and for the appeals they make to justice and fairness, but they are also renowned for indecisiveness and for lacking the gravitas to generate unified support for their own ideas. For all of President Biden's aggressiveness in executing a progressive agenda, the testimonials to his detail obsession, his propensity for second-guessing, and his concern about how much time he has to implement his agenda reflect a leader operating on political calculation rather than on a clear moral vision. Events in the news and statements by other voices in the administration and the Democratic Party bolster the image of a president focused on navigating political complexity. In opinion polling, President Biden has received high marks for his handling of the vaccine distribution, but in other areas, confidence in him has been highly aligned with ideological affiliation. And most significantly, although the latest National Opinion Research Center poll gave the president a lofty 63% approval rating, the number is deceiving. A much larger Pew Research Center poll in March reported that confidence in his ability to unite the country is below 50%.
No country for Joe Biden. The reset we need will happen sooner or later. Maybe now, maybe in 2028. But you can't stop what's coming. It ain't all waiting on you. That's vanity. From No Country for Old Men.
What you got ain't nothing new. This country's hard on people. You can't stop what's coming. It ain't all waiting on you. That's vanity.
Anytime Joe Biden is asked a question, he makes it clear that he has no idea what's going on in this country. He only knows the tiny bits of information he gets from watching Morning Joe. Here he calls the biggest threat to America Donald Trump. How could anyone be that irresponsible or that ignorant?
What, in your view, constitutes the primary threat to freedom and democracy at home?
Donald Trump. Seriously. Donald Trump uses phrases like, we're going to eviscerate the Constitution, he's going to be a dictator on day one.
Just listen to this focus group explain that Joe Biden is in denial and is gaslighting them about their problems.
The undecided voters were also asked how they think President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody. President Biden argues that his economic record has been very good. He said President Trump's was not as good. What are you keying off of, Sean? Since you had the best smile, and Virginia the second best smile. What are you keying off of to say President Trump's economic policies would be better for you?
My past performance of my 401k. I know it was post 2020 and everything kind of flipped around, but you can't blame everything on 2020 for forever.
We have areas here in Pennsylvania where it's just at a standstill right now. Like things are supposed to be being built and the interest rates are just way too high for people to invest and start moving around.
And Virginia, just staying with you because Pennsylvania is near and dear to Joe Biden's heart. Are there Biden policies that you would blame for the problem? And if so, what are they?
The interest rate is so high right now, and I know they're trying to cut the inflation down, but like if nobody is building, no businesses are really coming to Pennsylvania right now to keep us moving forward.
Even if you're trying to buy a house, because I'm trying to become a first-time home buyer, the prices are so high right now. It's just hard.
Is there anything Joe Biden could do or say between now and the time you vote that would make you feel differently about feeling that his policies would not be as good for your family on the economy? Or are you pretty much decided that Trump's policies would be better for the economy.
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for at all with what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability. Like, he's in denial that it's happening.
The point is Biden needs to hear the people, because when he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not, at Gigi's point, thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process.
Okay. And Omar, you voted for Joe Biden last time, right?
Yeah.
The cure to what ails us is hope. Hope for a better life, a better job, maybe a house, and maybe a decent vacation every year. Hope that we can see each other as Americans again. Hope that there isn't a stigma attached to just voting for Trump. Hope that we can find our way to the truth again.
If you take Trump's personality out of it and you just look at the policy, that's how his supporters look at him. I mean, they like that he puts a finger in the eye of the leftist media who hates them, but they're really looking at his policy. And if you just look at his policy, 15 weeks on abortion, exceptions for rape, incest, and health of the mother, and no bans, courting unions, courting Black voters, trade war with China, tariffs, controlling the border. This is what a Democrat sounded like in the 90s.
Totally.
He is a total centrist. He is the consensus candidate. And if there wasn't so much attention paid to his personality by the media who's so threatened by him, he would be seen as a unity candidate, because he is unifying working class people who were Democrats 50 years ago, who were Democrats 30 years ago, and who were Democrats 4 years ago. And meanwhile, Nikki Haley is was the one who was uniting the elites.
The Biden administration has turned a country that aims for equality into a country that forces indoctrination and divides us up on skin color and gender, enforcing gender-affirming care which mutilates the bodies of children. What hope can he possibly sell to the many when he is so narrowly focused on the few? At the end of every speech, Trump promises his supporters the same message. Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And together, we will make America great again. Maybe he's lying, like all politicians do. I'm not expecting much. But I know ending the madness of the left matters to me most of all. So for once, I'm putting my vote to good use. Thank you for listening to my podcast, sashastone.substack.com. And remember, to thine own self be true.
When the night has come, and the land is dark. When the night and the land is dark, and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, stand by me. Oh, won't you stand by me? Just as long want you to stay just as long, just as long, just as long, just as long. Stand by me, just as long as you stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble.